Hello, Leo. Let me ask you something before we go any further. What if the 6 numbers you'll hear today aren't just luck-a-theory cosmic codes meant to unlock your next financial and spiritual breakthrough? This isn't just a horoscope. This is a soul-level transmission crafted for the Leo who is ready to remember who they are. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, a sacred space for alignment, expansion, and divine timing. If this video has found you, I want you to know it's not random. The universe doesn't work in accidents. It works in frequency. And somehow, your field and mine are resonating right now. Over the next few minutes, we'll walk together through 6 powerful cosmic numbers specifically attuned to Leo's energy between June 1st and June 3rd. These numbers aren't predictions theory activators. Each one is infused with the vibrational energy of the stars, the planets, and the higher self you've been quietly evolving into. They hold guidance for your career, your health, your money, your spiritual path, and your inner authority. But more importantly, they mirror back the version of you that's already waking up. So I invite you to breathe with me. Ground yourself. Let your shoulders soften. Because if you're still watching, then somewhere deep inside, you felt the rumble. The shift. The quiet invitation to take yourself seriously again. Leo, your light is not up for debate. And this video is not here to tell you who you are, it's here to help you remember the truth you've always carried. The 6 numbers we'll explore today are not tools of chance. They are doorways to awareness. They reflect the soul contracts you made before you even arrived in this body. And right now, one of those contracts is knocking. Maybe you've been feeling scattered. Maybe you've given too much to people or projects that don't return your fire. Maybe the mirror's been blurry lately. Or your confidence has taken a hit. That's okay. You're here now. And that means something new is ready to begin. Before we go deeper, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below, tell me which area of your life you've been craving clarity in most. Is it your finances? Your love life? Your health? Or something deeper, more spiritual that even words can't quite name? Don't overthink it. Just write what flows. And if a specific number starts repeating in your mind while you're watching, write it down in the comments. That might be the universe choosing to speak through you. And if this message already feels like it's landing, drop a comment below with these words: I'm ready to receive. Not just for engagement but to activate the frequency you're stepping into. Now, allow me to take just a moment to express my deepest gratitude for your presence here. Every like, every comment, every time you share or subscribe, it brings you closer to the Eternal Mindfulness family. Your energy fuels this space. Your presence is the blessing. And I promise you, Leo love, you'll want to stay with me all the way through this video, because what the universe is preparing to reveal next is not just magical. It's revolutionary. Now tell me, my radiant Leo, what inside of you pulled you here today? Was it curiosity? A sign? An unshakable feeling that something in your world is about to shift? Whatever it was, trust it. You're exactly where you need to be. Let's begin. There's something quietly transformative about the energy of the number 11. It doesn't shout, it hums like a thread of silk gliding through the fabric of your thoughts when everything else is still. And if you've made it this far in our journey, Leo, then you've already begun tuning into that frequency. Number 11 doesn't demand attention. It gently opens the door that's always been waiting for you to notice it. In astrology, 11 is the number that mirrors the alignment of Neptune and Pisces, an invitation not to escape reality, but to soften into a deeper knowing that lives underneath it. When Neptune is active in the chart, especially in intuitive signs like Pisces, it encourages us to tune out the noise and sharpen the internal lens. Not by force, but by allowing. When you stop pushing to be certain and start allowing yourself to feel, a very different kind of clarity emerges, one that doesn't need logic to be true. This is where number 11 becomes more than a number. It becomes a mirror. A threshold. A subtle but unmistakable signal that what you seek outside already exists within. In moments of silence, especially the ones you've been avoiding, this number pulses. It's no coincidence that 1111 has become a symbol for alignment across many traditions. But here, let's not treat it as a superstition. Instead, view it as an opportunity. A moment to pause. A moment when your awareness and your path are standing in the same place at the same time. You can either walk by it distracted, or step through with intention. This number also carries a gentle reminder that not everything that is real can be explained. Some truths arrive in symbols, in synchronicities, or in the way your breath shifts when you hear certain words. You may notice this in your sleep, perhaps in dreams that linger longer than they should, or in physical sensations that seem to hold a message just beneath their surface. The body is not separate from awareness. In fact, it is often the very first messenger. And if you've been dismissing its quiet nudges, this is the time to lean in. When we speak about intuition, especially in your career or decision-making, it's not about rejecting logic or strategy. It's about allowing a second voice to rise, one that's quieter, but no less intelligent. Maybe you felt this voice before and pushed it aside, thinking, that can't be right. But what if that voice wasn't asking to be right? What if it was just asking to be acknowledged? Much like a still pond reflects the sky only when undisturbed, your inner clarity arises most vividly when you stop trying to manipulate it. There's an old wisdom that says, when the mind is silent, the truth speaks. And number 11 is simply a vessel for that truth. It's not here to offer guarantees. It's here to offer you presence. So take that 11-minute pause each morning, not as a routine, but as a reunion. Let those minutes be a sacred opening where you don't have to be anyone or perform anything. Just breathe. Just listen. Say to yourself, I am open, and then do nothing. The space that follows is where the signal can finally land. In this way, number 11 doesn't just point you toward your next step, it teaches you to recognize the step before it even arrives. And when you learn to live from that place, Leo, you're not just reacting to life anymore. You're dancing with it. Deliberate, calm, and deeply aligned. There's a quiet kind of power that begins to emerge when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start realizing you are the moment. Number 21 carries that frequency. It does not rush, and it does not stall. It arrives when preparation meets readiness, when what you've been building in thought is ready to be shaped by action. If number 11 opened the door to inner awareness, then 21 invites you to step through it with both feet planted firmly in the real world. Energetically, 21 represents a union, an elegant synthesis between vision and movement, between inner clarity and outer construction. Astrologically, it mirrors the energy of the Sun forming a harmonious trine with Saturn, a configuration that speaks to dependable, focused energy. This isn't the wild spark of beginnings, this is the slow burn of commitment, of consistency, of completion. When these two celestial forces align, the message is simple but profound. You already have the tools, you simply need to pick them up. In tarot, the World card is number 21. It doesn't symbolize endless searching, it symbolizes arrival. A cycle has run its course. A version of you has lived its full story. But here's the gentle truth tucked inside that closure: endings aren't finish lines. They're thresholds. And when you cross one with presence, you don't just leave something behind, you inherit the wisdom it gave you. Physically, this energy often shows up in the body's architecture. You might feel it in your spine when you sit upright without realizing it, or in the way your chest expands when you breathe into a decision instead of away from it. The health message behind 21 asks you to care for your bones not just as a structural system, but as a metaphor. Your body holds you upright, yes. But so do your choices. Your rituals. Your ability to show up even when it would be easier to delay. That's why now, more than ever, is the time to complete what has been half-formed. Whether it's a project you've paused, a goal you've postponed, or a promise you made to yourself in silence, number 21 doesn't demand perfection. It invites follow-through. It whispers, just do the next clear thing. You already know what it is. When you write down the 3 tasks you've been avoiding and commit to finishing just one within 21 hours, you're not just checking off a to-do list. You're making a small but deliberate shift in your alignment. You're saying, I trust myself to follow through. I trust the process that brought me here. That kind of action, even when small, carries the weight of transformation. Because what you complete today clears the space for what's truly meant for you next. There's also a deeper teaching here, one echoed by many ancient paths of practice. It says, the way is made by walking. The step reveals itself not before the foot moves, but because it moves. Sometimes we wait for clarity, when in truth, clarity is built in motion. You've come far, Leo, and now you're standing at the edge of something meaningful, not because you're about to leap, but because you're finally ready to land. Let your progress be your grounding. Let the discipline you cultivate now become the container for your joy later. And remember, there is nothing more magnetic than a Leo who knows where they're going and takes the steps to get there, not with force, but with full-hearted intention. This is not just the close of one cycle. It's the quiet beginning of your next masterpiece. There's something about number 3 that feels like a deep breath after a long silence. It's the moment when energy that has been quietly gathering within finally chooses a form. If 21 invited us to act, then 3 reminds us that expression is action. It's the bridge between thought and manifestation, between what we believe and what we're bold enough to speak. And the energy right now, especially with Mercury entering Gemini, asks that you don't just think clearly, but communicate consciously. There's a reason this number has long been associated with creation. It represents the power to transform a fleeting idea into something that moves, inspires, or heals. This is a delicate but powerful moment for Leo, a sign ruled by the sun and born to shine, to remember that the way you speak about yourself, your future, and even your current challenges isn't just commentary, it's construction. Every word is a brushstroke on the canvas of your unfolding reality. And number 3 holds the mirror to that truth, gently asking, are you telling the story you truly want to live? When Mercury activates Gemini, our words gain wings. The mind becomes quick, curious, and agile. But with that agility comes responsibility, because fast words still leave long shadows. This is the time to choose language that aligns with who you're becoming, not who you were in your hardest season. It's the time to stop repeating stories that shrink you and instead practice speaking sentences that expand you, even if your voice shakes. The smallest shift in tone can change how opportunity responds to you. This number also lives in the body, specifically the throat, the lungs, and the breath that carries your truth into sound. If you've been feeling tension in your voice or pressure in your chest, consider it a signal, not a symptom. The body, after all, is a sensitive recorder of unspoken truths. When we hold back what needs to be said or speak in ways that distort rather than clarify, our physical systems respond. Herbal teas, slow breathing, and intentional pauses aren't just good habits. They're part of how we cleanse the channel between what we feel and what we say. On a deeper level, this is about integrity between inner knowing and outer sharing. Silence has its place, but so does expression. There is a practice, simple, quiet, but deeply effective, of starting each day by saying aloud a single sentence that supports your expansion. Not a wish, not a vague hope, but a clear, affirmative truth. I trust myself. I am ready for clarity. I speak from my center. Repeating that sentence 3 times in front of a mirror isn't a ritual of vanity, it's a practice of presence. You're not asking for change. You're acknowledging that it's already underway. There is a gentle wisdom that teaches, when the heart and the voice are aligned, action follows without resistance. And perhaps that's the invitation of number 3, not to force, but to express. Not to perform, but to articulate. Your voice, Leo, carries a unique tone. It doesn't need to be louder, it needs to be truer. And this week, your ability to speak with clarity, creativity, and conviction might just be the key that unlocks the next chapter of your journey. Not because you convinced anyone else, but because you finally convinced yourself. Let your words honor your growth. Let your breath carry your vision. Let this number remind you that communication is never neutral. It either nourishes your path or pulls you from it. And today, you get to choose which story your voice will feed. There are moments in life that don't arrive with fireworks or grand endings, but rather with a soft, quiet knowing that something has run its course. The energy of number 18 carries this stillness. It doesn't demand closure, it simply reveals it. If the previous numbers have helped you act, express, or build, then 18 asks you to gently begin the process of release. Not because things are falling apart, but because you're finally ready to let go of what no longer resonates with the truth you've been growing into. In astrology, Pluto, the planet of deep transformation, activates this space of surrender. When Pluto touches a point in your chart, it doesn't suggest minor tweaks. It signals a shedding, a kind of cellular renewal that doesn't happen by pushing harder, but by loosening your grip. And Leo, I know how deeply you care. You hold on with both heart and fire. But not all endings are losses. Some are acts of devotion to your next level of peace. The number 18 in tarot corresponds with the moon, and that in itself carries meaning. The moon doesn't shine with clarity, it softens. It casts long shadows. It illuminates what is hidden, not to frighten us, but to prepare us. During moon phases, particularly the waning moon, our energy naturally turns inward. We're invited to cleanse physically, emotionally, mentally, and begin again. The wisdom here isn't loud. It's tender, reflective, sometimes uncomfortable, but always truthful. When things feel foggy, that doesn't mean you're off path. It means something deeper is surfacing to be seen. You might feel this energy in your body right now as fatigue, tension, or even restlessness. And it makes sense. The act of letting go can be just as intense as the effort of building something new. Your system is asking for a reset. This is the time to simplify. Hydrate more than usual. Prioritize sleep without guilt. Allow space in your calendar, your meals, and your thoughts for detox, not as punishment, but as a return to your natural rhythm. In your work life, you may notice a subtle, persistent thought: why am I still doing this? It may be tied to a task, a relationship, a responsibility, or even a version of success that no longer fits. Honor that question. Let it rise. You're not being lazy. You're being honest. The desire to stop is often misunderstood as weakness, but in truth, it can be a signal of strength, the recognition that your energy is too precious to be scattered. That your focus deserves new direction. There's a deeply compassionate teaching that reminds us, when the cup is full, we must pour it out before it can be filled again. You cannot carry yesterday's attachments into tomorrow's liberation. That's why the simple act of writing down one thing you're ready to release and burning it is so much more than symbolic. It's a physical decision. A declaration to your nervous system and your environment that you're making space for freedom, for clarity, for alignment. This number doesn't come with applause. It comes with relief. A quiet exhale after carrying something too long. And in that space of surrender, something beautiful begins to form. Not through effort, but through spaciousness. This isn't about erasing the past. It's about no longer needing it to define what comes next. Because sometimes, the most powerful beginning is the one that follows a kind and necessary end. Sometimes, transformation doesn't begin with certainty, it begins with a pulse. A nudge in the body. A sense that the routine no longer fits, that the rhythm you've been walking to is no longer yours. That's the moment when the energy of number 5 begins to rise. It doesn't always arrive with logic. Often, it comes with restlessness. But restlessness is not something to avoid, it's something to understand. Number 5 speaks not to chaos, but to movement. It is the frequency of change, of breaking through the tight skin of old patterns to breathe more freely into possibility. When Uranus forms a sextile with Mars, the universe sends a clear signal: there is energy to act. But that action can no longer come from the past. It must emerge from the self you're becoming. And yet, change, even welcome change, can feel uncomfortable. The mind searches for safety in what's familiar, even if that familiarity is limiting. But number 5 invites you to gently disrupt that pattern, not by force, but with curiosity. One new thought. One new path. One conscious break in the loop of habit is often all it takes to begin shifting your internal direction. You don't have to leap. You simply have to loosen your grip on what has already finished serving its purpose. This number also lives in your breath, in your body's kinetic memory. When you really move, you remind your nervous system that energy is meant to flow, not stagnate. That's why light cardio, even just dancing to one song or walking a new route, is more than exercise. It is an affirmation: I'm not stuck. I'm in motion. And motion makes new awareness possible. Especially for Leo, a sign with fire at its core, this moment is about trusting that your power grows when it's allowed to evolve. You weren't meant to repeat, you were meant to expand. Still, the fear of change often arises not because we don't want better but because part of us wonders if we can truly hold it. But here's where the deeper teaching lies: freedom is not the absence of fear. It's the choice to move with it. Every time you honor a new impulse, whether it's to say no when you used to say yes, to dress differently, speak differently, or show up for yourself in a way that used to feel too bold, you strengthen your alignment. Not with an image, but with your living truth. And truth, once aligned, becomes magnetic. That's why 5 is a number of liberation. Not the wild kind that burns everything down, but the conscious kind that says, I trust the wisdom of change. I trust the call to shift, even before I know where it leads. The smallest pivot taken with intention can reroute your entire path. This number is not here to convince you to run. It's here to remind you that you're allowed to move. But movement without grounding can scatter the very clarity it seeks to cultivate. That's where the energy of number 29 enters a quieter, slower current, yet equally essential. If 5 cracks the door open, 29 helps you step through with grace. The combined energy of the Moon and Saturn invites emotional maturity, not by forcing answers, but by creating space for reflection. Growth, after all, isn't always fast. It's often subtle, unfolding in the moments when no one is watching. It's in how you respond to discomfort, how you sit with your own silence, and how you listen when nothing outside of you is speaking. This number reminds you that integration is just as powerful as inspiration. When your body says rest, listen. When your mind feels overstimulated, pause. When you're tempted to keep scrolling, consuming, or distracting yourself from the moment, ask, what am I avoiding? Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is sit still long enough to hear yourself clearly. The invitation here is not to disconnect, but to reconnect with what matters. And to do so not through noise, but through stillness. That's why something as simple as turning off your devices for 29 minutes and journaling your emotional state isn't trivial. It's essential. It trains your awareness to return to the present. It allows buried truths to surface in their own time. And it cultivates a rhythm that nourishes rather than depletes. In this quiet discipline, you're not just protecting your energy or maturing it. You're anchoring it in wisdom that doesn't need to prove itself, because it's already whole. Together, numbers 5 and 29 create a powerful continuum, one that begins with the spark of transformation and settles into the steadiness of grounded evolution. One reminds you to say yes to what calls you. The other reminds you to say yes to the silence that helps you hold it. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be certain to move forward. All you need is presence and the willingness to meet your life where it's already shifting. If you're still here, Leo, I know that at least one of these 6 cosmic numbers has stirred something deep within you. Maybe it wasn't loud. Maybe it arrived like a whisper, a flicker of recognition just behind your breath. But you felt it, and that's enough. That one subtle shift in awareness is all it takes to realign your trajectory. And so, I invite you now to name it. Drop the number that resonated most in the comments below, not for me, but for you. Naming it is claiming it. Writing it is anchoring it. You are not just watching a video, you are responding to a call. Remember, Leo, you are not here to chase the light. You are the light. You're not waiting to be chosen. You've already been called. The universe doesn't place messages like this in your path by chance. It brings them into your field when you are ready. And the very fact that you've arrived here, stayed here, and opened your heart to receive means that something within you already knew. These numbers didn't come to predict your future. They came to remind you of the power you hold to create it. From June 1st to 3rd, take each step as if you already have the answer, because the truth is, your heart has known for a long time. It's your mind that's just beginning to catch up. And the moment you stop second-guessing the signals you've been sensing is the moment momentum starts to build. You don't need all the pieces to begin. You only need to decide that you're done shrinking into the past. I want you to consider something now. If you were to live as if you were already aligned with your next level, how would you speak? What would you choose? What would you finally release? These aren't rhetorical questions. They are gateways. And if you feel safe enough, I invite you to answer one of them in the comments. Let your own voice become the mirror. And if you're not ready to say it out loud yet, say it to yourself. Whisper it. Write it down. But don't ignore it. The version of you that's waiting on the other side of action is no longer a distant dream. It's within reach. Let this video be more than a moment of inspiration. Let it become a practice. A daily reminder that you can reconnect with your frequency at any time, not by doing more, but by becoming still enough to feel what's true. These numbers are not here to change your life. They're here to reflect the change that's already happening. Quietly. Consistently. With purpose. So if something in this message settled into your body like a truth you didn't know you were waiting to hear, please like the video. It helps send that frequency further. If you feel called to share it, do so with someone you know is walking a similar path. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness. Not just because it's another channel, but because this space is here to walk beside you, to bring you messages when you forget your own light, and to remind you that you are never walking alone. And before you go, let me ask you one last question. Not one to answer quickly, but one to carry with you into the next few days. What part of you are you finally ready to let lead? The part that doubts, or the part that already knows? I trust you'll choose well. You always have.